It is the Pete Sousa Show. We are live in the Rogue Media Alico building, or just the Alico building. We're powered by Rogue Media, brought to you by Slovakics, D1, Daniel Stark, and the good folks at Socorro Family Ford. Big day today. I'm auditioning for the Backstreet Boys. What do you think? You are my fire.
Stop. You fail. You lose.
Does
your
that
audition.
no? If I sing it, it's potential that I could sing it so well I might get us taken down. So that's why they made me stop. Although I did want to talk to Mike Hamilton. I do believe I could get up here and do I could do a Christmas album. I think so. Right? If we had enough like resources and like music in the back. Mike, where are you going? Uh-oh. Mike got up. Mike, do you think I mean, what would it take? Seriously, I think I could do one.
To do a Christmas album?
Yeah.
I think that I think we've got some rights that we have to get a hold of.
Yeah, but if everybody else and their grandma can do that, why can't we? You know?
Well, I will tell you this: like me and my buddy Casey, we were coming back from a concert the other night.
Oh
and,
boy, this
and
took
he
a turn quickly.
he not at all. He Scotty, you really don't have to get me on camera.
On the show.
So he says that he and I are going to get up at this concert we're having on the 20th, and we're going to do some Christmas songs. So I asked Sheridan and Brazos to back us up with the bass and the drums. So we're going to get up there and do the little drummer boy.
There's a person here that's named Brazos?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like the river?
Yeah, like the river. Yeah.
Wow.
No, like the brewing company. I don't know.
All right, well, Mike, I would like to do that. So we
you want to sing a Christmas song?
I mean, maybe I would like to do maybe one song. Yeah, there's got to be a way we could do one that's fair game and copyrighted. Everybody else is putting out a goddamn Christmas album. Why can't we?
Yeah. No, I'm down with you, Pete. I'll help you record a Christmas album. It'll be for next Christmas, but yeah.
Maybe we could do one song for this Christmas.
You want to do like you want to just do it on your show, or is this something?
Yeah, but would
separate?
it get taken down?
Is this an EP that we're going to release?
I don't want the show to get taken down because of copyright.
It's according to what you get. I mean, I'm sure there's something out there in the public domain that could be used.
Yeah, but I want it to be a popular song, like a cover.
Well, then you're screwed. I don't know.
But maybe there's cover.
There's a guy on YouTube that what he does is he takes the Mariah Carey, Christmas song. What is that song?
All I Want for Christmas is
You. All I Want for Christmas, right? He takes that and he puts her in different situations. So like there's one where it's Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas, but the studio gets hit by a car. And then there's one where it's Mariah Carey, but she's got a cold or she has to sneeze or something like that. Those are the Christmas songs that I want.
All right, listen, we're Mike.
Little Drummer Boy, right? Is that the one you want to do?
I want to do Little Drummer Boy.
I'll do the Parumpa Pum Pums.
If I do Little Drummer Boy, then I'm gonna have to register every time I go to move and live somewhere. I'm not doing Little Drummer Boy.
So which one would you do? What song?
I would do like Let It Snow. I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Isn't there like
Rocking Around the Christmas Tree?
Isn't there like one Christmas song that you just don't hear much anymore?
I would do Mr. Grinch.
Oh, that's a good
You're
one.
a mean one, Mr. Grinch. I could do that.
Yeah.
You really are a heel. All right.
Copyright,
That's
please.
enough for that. Okay, we're gonna get back on track here. But I do love Mike Hamilton, and I'm serious. I would just for a spoof. It'd be neat to see how that would go down. How good it would be. All right, Cam. Cam's coming up. Third segment. Second segment. We got Matt Mosley. We got a lot to cover here today. I am wearing a turtleneck because it was part of like an outfit earlier today. I feel like I need to get into that because I don't know. I just feel like if my brother saw me in a turtleneck, it would be the Super Bowl of ball breaking. So it was part of an outfit, and that outfit is gone, but I had to race up here. So here we are wearing a turtleneck. This is how things happen to people. A cable knit sweater. Okay. But yeah, I filmed the Inside the 12 show today. Big time preview. Iowa State and Arizona State. It's going to be an exciting Big 12 championship game in Arlington, in a game now that looks like it's. And this kind of sucks. We're going to find out more tomorrow. We're going to talk to Shahan Jayaraja from CBS Sports. Our boy Scotty Swingler put that together. Shahan was actually a part of the Big 12 show we just did, which is going to air on ESPN and then all the affiliates and YouTube. But Scotty, how do you feel about this Big 12 championship game? And it kind of sucked that we had to use this language as a probable college football entry, like this. If there's a probable bid,
I think we will find out tomorrow when they unveil the rankings that it's a definite entry.
Okay.
Tulane blowing it this past week kind of solidifies that. I thought it should. I mean, we talked about this last week. I thought it should have been a definite entry regardless. But
yeah,
with Tulane losing, there's no excuse to me to keep the Big 12 champ out. And I think Arizona's going to win it. Arizona is one of the hottest teams in the country.
Yeah.
Arizona State, yes, correct. One of the hottest teams in the country. So they'll, I think, get in, and I hope even not the lowest seed like they were projected last week.
And I think too that if the game was played anywhere else, Iowa State would blow the doors off them. It's a
really,
yeah. Well, I think Arizona State has lost their best receiver, Jordan Tyson, and I think that because of that, I think Iowa State will win.
They have not lost Scatabo.
No, they haven't, and he's amazing. He is amazing, but I don't know. Iowa State's defense is really good. And Arizona State hasn't seen a defense like this all year long.
Should be a good matchup. Can I ask you, since we didn't talk about this yesterday, were you a little disappointed that it didn't work out to get Colorado in there? I know you were.
Yeah, dude. I thought it sucked, and especially because they beat Oklahoma State like an absolute drum, and it was one of those things like, hey, you got to beat BYU in that game. I'm sorry, you got to beat Kansas.
You got to beat Kansas,
and they didn't do it. So
right.
It sucks, but they had their chance, man. They really did have their chance. A bunch of stuff I want to talk about. A couple things. I want to talk about LeBron James. LeBron is amazing in this sense. So now he's insistent on playing 82 games, but he's in the worst shooting slump since his life, basically, since his rookie year. So he's made this thing where, I feel like, look, this is LeBron, and I need to preface this by saying he's one of the best basketball players of all time, and he's one of the best guys of all time because he's such a great example for young people, what he's done with all his schools. He never gets in trouble, that we know of, which means he never gets in big trouble. And he's an amazing player on the court. He's a great guy all around. But he's a different guy. And his ability to deal with certain things is always kind of funny. Like, it's like he's stomping his feet now. I'm going to play 82 games because people give me a hard time about the load management. And now it's almost like a young teenager who's like pouting. It's like, well, I'm not going to play 82 games to my own detriment. Like, now, do you see what this is doing to me? But I'm doing it for you. And finally, JJ Redick is like, yeah, I don't think we can do this anymore. Because clearly, look, man, LeBron is not young anymore. I mean, just think about how different your life was when LeBron James started playing in the NBA. I mean, it was 2003. That was crazy. I mean, my life was, I don't even want to go there, but it was very different. So LeBron has been around for a very long time. His goal of playing 82 games is in jeopardy because it seems like JJ Redick is going to just help LeBron where he can't help himself. They lost last night 109-80 to Minnesota. And he said, after LeBron shot 4 of 16, it's funny, right? Like, LeBron's awesome, but like, I almost like, and this is like, what it's almost like he's doing this on purpose, right? Like he's going to do his best to he's making a scene, but yeah, that's just, I'll be interested to see what happens with all of that and with LeBron. NFL football Hall of Fame. Mike Holmgren and Sterling Sharp are among the Pro Football Hall of Fame finalists. Scotty, come on up for this. Did we have now what we did on Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
That was different than this, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So this is, because I know that Sterling Sharp or Shannon Sharp wasn't on my list, right?
Right.
Okay. So
he was not in that list.
So how is this different?
I'm not sure how it works, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm not well researched. Maybe Cam can help us with that.
Cam, forget it. He's got headphones on. We'll talk to Cam about this in segment 3. Another thing that I wanted to touch on, again, Mosley is coming up. There's a lot going on as far as the Cowboys are concerned and their winning streak. And if it will indeed become a winning streak, they won 2 games straight. The last game against the Giants are really, really bad. And I think it's you cannot get carried away with that victory at all. The Giants now are the only other team in the NFL not to win a home football game, as the Cowboys were able to win that game. Rico Dowdle, who had the 100-yard rushing game, became the first Cowboy in like 20-something games to rush for 100 yards. When I heard that on the Doomsday podcast here, we're going to talk to Matt Mosley, that was an alarming statistic. I had no idea that it had gotten that bad for the Cowboys. That was something that I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. We'll discuss that with Matt Mosley a little bit. I worry about the Cowboys and where they're headed. There's 2 ways. There's 2 schools of thought. One, they're worse than we think right now because they've won 2 straight. That's like fool's gold. Or 2, they do keep winning and Mike McCarthy keeps his job, which I want to talk to Scotty. You think there's no chance?
I am the biggest Cowboys fan, certainly in this room. And I would be so upset if he keeps his job. Because what's ironic about you pointing out that rushing statistic is that directly correlates with getting rid of Kellen Moore, because Mike McCarthy said he's too pass happy and we need to run the ball more. And all that's happened under Mike McCarthy is the offense has regressed, particularly in the run game.
Yeah, and Ed Werder said that talking to Mosley on Sunday. He said, or I guess it was Thursday, he said Mike McCarthy talks about running the football a lot.
Doesn't do it.
All the way back to Green Bay. Ultimately, when he's in control, he does not run the football.
No. What he says his ideals are don't align with the product on the field.
Yeah, no, not
kind of like how Jerry talks about wanting to win, but it doesn't align with the product on the field.
So we'll see what happens with that. That's something I'm very interested in. Scotty mentioned it. I was bummed about Colorado not making it to the big dance. Hey, that's a bummer, but what are we going to do? I spoke with Kenny Dillingham and Joey McGuire yesterday as a part of that Big 12 show. We're going to share those interviews with you on Thursday. The impression I got from Kenny Dillingham was that without Jordan Tyson, who has been the best wide receiver in the country maybe over the course of the past 6 weeks, which has really helped Arizona State to winning 5 straight and the greatest turnaround in Arizona State history, and now they're on the brink of a college football playoff berth. By the way, Kenny Dillingham is 34 years old. I mean, that is ridiculous. He went to Arizona State, grew up in Arizona, was playing football in high school, tore his ACL, and his coach said, hey, you should start to coach. You're too small. This is an opportunity for you to get a head start. And he actually took his coach's advice. He started to coach the JV team and has literally since he's 34, 17 years of his life have been coaching football. And this is the first time in his career, the past 2 years ever, that he has been since high school, since he was coaching high schoolers 15 years ago, that he's now back he's back on the sidelines. He's been in the booth for that long. And he said, and you'll hear more about this when we share the conversation, but he said that he even contemplating seeing if he could be a head coach from upstairs, which obviously is not something that he felt would behoove him at the college level, being a head coach. So a lot of fun. Got to talk to Joey McGuire too. And Joey was pretty vocal with his thoughts about where the Big 12 is kind of getting hosed when it comes down to college football playoff rankings. And if you listen to guys like Shahan Jayaraja, if you listen to a guy, of course, Joey McGuire becomes like a mouthpiece for the Big 12. But the reality is that the Big 12 is a pretty good conference. And, one game in particular, when you look at how the Big 12 and the power of the conference has been dismissed to a degree, all anybody wants to talk about is SMU and how great they are. BYU beat SMU earlier in the year, and it's almost as though that didn't happen. in both respects, in the power for the Big 12, and where the ACC is, and folks are looking at SMU. I find that to be somewhat interesting. So again, here's the cool thing: we will have, according to Scotty, and I believe him, like after the rankings come out tomorrow, we will see that the Big 12 championship game will be a precursor to one of those teams making the college football playoff. And the really cool part about that is you get to play the games. You know, you get to play the games, and that'll be fun. I think that Iowa State is actually better suited to go into the college football playoff and win a game, because odds are Arizona State will be playing on the road in a cold weather game. And if that's a night game, that could be rough. You know, like even last week, Iowa State, they beat Kansas State at home, and it was in like the 18-degree temperatures in Ames, Iowa. Iowa State plays really good defense. So it's a situation where I just feel like Iowa State and the way that they play football sort of lends itself more. Because now we get to talk about college football sort of like we do the NFL, which is, okay, is your team equipped if you make the playoffs to win on the road in the NFL? Because a lot of times, like if you're in the NFC this year, like it's likely like you'll have to go through Philadelphia at some point if things keep going this way for the Eagles. There are other good teams there too, but you get what I'm saying. You have to win running the football and in cold weather. Go ahead, Scotty.
Well, so keep in mind that like some of those first round matchups, it's not just teams up north. Like Georgia will probably be hosting a game. Tennessee, but some of those SEC teams will be hosting games. That's one thing. And if you can win that first game, then you go to the traditional bowl sites.
Yes.
So I would not count Arizona State out, bro. Like I understand the Tyson injury is a bad one, but I'm going to be a slight hater here. Matt Campbell has yet to outcoach someone in a massive football game.
Yeah.
Not saying he can't.
Yeah.
But he has yet to do it. And so I kind of like the idea of the rookie head coach and the team pick 16th and the running Scatabo, the running back. I think there's some really fun storylines, not to dismiss Iowa State, but I think the Arizona State kind of movie success story.
I
really
like that
fun,
too.
man.
It's certainly something to
it's really fun.
Yeah, it's been fun we've certainly enjoyed the ride. One other thing for Arizona State, which kind of I think they get screwed, is this weekend. It's a Central Time kickoff at 11 a.m. That blows if you're Arizona State. Like, and I forgot to ask Kenny Dillingham about that, but they can't be in love with that start time. I just think like little stuff.
Great.
Yeah, the same. It was, if I'm not mistaken, I think, or maybe it was a 2:30 Central start. But when they lost to Cincinnati and when they lost to Texas Tech, both those games were earlier in the day Central Time start. So something to keep an eye on. Somebody who it's so hard to keep an eye on because he's just about everywhere. Is Matt Mosley. He's coming up next on the Pete Sousa Show.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win, and when pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame? Is that
he is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserving, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
All right, it is the Pete Sousa Show, and we are powered by the Rogue Media Network, presented by Slovaceks. And let's get you right to our next guest, Matt Mosley. Matt Mosley is obviously a guy who covers the Dallas Cowboys and has for decades, or more than a decade, we'll say. How long, Matt? Let's bring you in for this.
We don't need to.
Okay.
We don't need to drill in too closely on this, but I guess. My first year covering the team was Bill Parcells' first year with the Cowboys, and so that would have been 2003.
Oh, wow. So more than 20 years. How about it?
There you go. Been on the beat, and before that, man, was covering some serious high school sports, and then one major Baylor scandal in 2003. And then suddenly I was put on the Cowboys beat. And so I've been covering that ever since in varying levels. The beat, when I was on the beat, man, it was a 24/7. It was a constant. It was me sneaking around airports, being out on tarmacs, finding coaches. I'm not quite doing it to that level anymore, but I still monitor them very closely and attend and cover every home game.
All right, so here's what I have for you. Looking at their schedule, it's conceivable. Now I'm not going like I was with Baylor, right? They're not going to win out, obviously, but they could put together a little bit of a run here to finish off the season. If they were to win the season on whatever your definition of a hot streak is, could Mike McCarthy keep his job?
And by the way, I mean, you're welcome to predict anything you want to predict, because I was giving you a lot of props on the show the other day. Nobody had any thought of the Bears running the table, the Baylor Bears, and yet you spoke it into existence, and it happened. They won 6 straight.
They got the dudes.
That's an amazing thing to have witnessed, especially in the aftermath of last season. Now, Cowboys wise, I mean, I do think they could tease everyone. I honestly think it might be best for everybody involved if they do what I think they're very capable of doing Monday night, which is getting blown off the field by the Bengals, by a quarterback who's having a tremendous season, but his team finds itself 4-8. If the Bengals put on the offensive show they're capable of putting on, and the Cowboys play like they normally play at home, this will be a lopsided loss by the Cowboys. So I do see, but I know what you're saying. Like, there is part of me that's thinking, my gosh, what if they got this thing to 7-7? And that is possible. That is possible. It's not like the Bengals or Tampa. It's not, or Carolina games coming up, I think, before the Tampa game. I mean, come on. What if they got it? What if we got really crazy here and they got it to 8-7? 8-7 wins you some divisions in the AFC. I mean, it even wins you the NFC West right now is really up for grabs. I think the leader in that division is at 7-5. So, I mean, I don't like their playoff chances simply because of the division they play in, but let's not act like the Commanders are just tearing it up. I do think they improved to 8-5, but if you got this thing to 8-7, then we might be able to start talking about something.
Well, so is there a world where the Cowboys retain Mike McCarthy?
Oh yeah, that's what you had asked a while back before I started going off on something. I don't see it.
Okay.
I mean, it's possible, but I don't think you let them coach into the final year, miss the playoffs, and then bring everybody back. I mean, the only way you would do it is just if Jerry just owns all of this and says this was completely my fault, and then you give him the Dak excuse. But again, as Jerry has noted, they were not playing that well with Dak. So I think this is 98% chance that this will be a new coaching staff next season.
How big of a blow was it for this Cowboys team to get rid of Kellen Moore?
That's interesting because let's not act like. I mean, they certainly were doing some good things, but I mean, Mike, they did win 12 games last year without him. I like Kellen, and I think he did some good things, but I think Mike was ready to succeed or fail on his own. And so he wanted a shot at trying to do what he really should have been asked in the first place. I mean, the idea of bringing in Mike McCarthy as some kind of CEO coach was always weird. Like Jerry hires him and goes, hey, by the way, you're not calling the plays. Kellen Moore's calling the plays. So again, as long as Mike was here, it was always going to be awkward with Kellen. Now that said, Kellen's continued to mature and will continue to be up for head coaching positions. But he seems to have found a place and a system that where he's doing pretty well. But I think his time with the Cowboys had ended, and I don't think any success or failure afterwards really has that much to do with him.
All right, here's another thing. You and Ed Werder talked about this on Doomsday Podcast. Of course, you can check it out on the Rogue Media Network. Rico Dowdle, his 100-yard rushing game was the first in like 20-something games, the first 100-yard rushing game for the Cowboys. Matt, I try to stay close to the fire. That blew me away. I had no idea that they had strayed so far from consistent success running the football. What does that say about Mike McCarthy's offense?
Well, it says that Mike is he's all talk. Like he loves to talk about ground and pound and run the football, and he's not committed to it at all. And so I think that's why we were all shocked that Rico, there was a day where they gave him 20 carries. And even at one point there was one point in the game where even Mike couldn't keep doing it. Mike had to come out and go 3 and out and throw it around a little bit, even though the run had been working. But again, it just simply is not in Mike McCarthy's DNA to run the football. And it doesn't, that's why, as much as you would have, I think people would have liked to have seen him sign Derrick Henry. He probably would have been wasted here. Like Mike is not going to stick with that because it's not who he is. So it doesn't really matter if it's Rico. Would Derrick have been better? Sure.
Dude, that's a great, that is a very good point though. And you wonder if that went into Jerry Jones's thinking at all. I don't even know that I would say he's that big picture, but that's a very interesting point that anybody would have gotten lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. That's just the way it is. Like nobody, Zeke was taken during and had his great years during the Garrett regime. It's not like once Mike showed up that oh man, Zeke's still really good. No, Mike didn't commit to it. In fact, that's the only reason everybody loved Tony Pollard is because he didn't get many carries. And so it was like the thought of what he could be, like anything, that's what got people excited. I do love that Jerry has now gone on his radio show and said that, he thinks momentum can carry over from one season to the next. So he's obviously already thinking, well, this team's winning now, so they automatically will win in 2025. But he also admitted that it could go the opposite way. And he said that losing a game like they did against Green Bay can have a holdover effect. Well, by the way, you don't think that we brought that up to Mike and Dak and everybody involved, and they all poo-poo it like, no, this year that has nothing. And even Jerry has said things like that. I'm not taking anything to account last season. That's last season. Imagine that. Now Jerry acting like the Green Bay loss has somehow what carried over into this season was his refusal to do anything about it, to react, to bring anybody in, to change coaches, really to do anything. I mean, he did change defensive coordinators, but only because he had to, only because Dan Quinn got hired to be a head coach somewhere. So you can't credit him for good job, Jerry. You went and hired Mike Zimmer. As much as I'm a Zimmer guy, and he's a friend of mine, I mean, it's the least inspiring choice he probably could have made. He just went back to some guy that made him feel comfortable. Oh, wait, Mike's out there, hadn't coached in a year or two. Let's bring Mike back because that makes me comfortable. That's why it's kind of funny to me when you hear about Vrabel and Belichick and whoever else you want to mention. What Jerry always comes back to is what makes me the most comfortable. And that's who he'll hire. And if it's rarely, he does not hire young assistants. And that's why that Ben Johnson has never, I think he'd probably be a great choice.
Yeah.
But that's never felt real to me because that doesn't feel like Jerry. Jerry's like literally today at some point going to look up Norv Turner and just kind of go, I wonder how old Norv is. All right, do you think Norv could still do this? Or could we have another crack at Wade Phillips? I wonder how old Wade is. He's still coaching some kind of USFL, whatever that is now. He's still coaching XFL. Maybe we could get him involved. So that's the kind of stuff Jerry really dreams about is who he can bring in that makes him happy. And it's all those people I just mentioned.
Is there any chance, and I want to talk to you about Baylor, but I want to wrap up the Cowboys with this. Is there any chance for Bill Belichick, or does Jerry see him as too high maintenance or maybe almost too territorial with the football team itself?
Okay, say that because my mind started floating into Baylor.
Okay,
are you saying what did you say about?
Bill
you're
Belichick,
asking me about Belichick. Okay,
as a prospective coach, is he too territorial with the football team itself? Like, would Jerry feel uninvolved?
Yes. He did not feel great, and he was mostly miserable during the Parcells years, and it would not be that much different than Belichick. And deep down, even though he does want to get back in, Belichick would not love the nonsense that comes along with this job. And I'm not even talking about people taking tours through his offices or something. By the way, that was my favorite when the Texans were a relatively young franchise, and I started covering like around the NFL, like 2007 or 8. I started doing more like around the NFL, and like it was just hilarious to go from covering the Cowboys to being on the Texans deal. And I go, hey, could I set up something to visit with Coach Kubiak? Could I visit with Gary Kubiak? And they literally said, well, I think he's back at his office if you want to go back there and check on him. Like that was different. It literally, John McClane, who's this kind of famous, he's mostly famous because, he's good at tooting his own horn, but I also like John and I like giving him a hard time, but he literally had the run of the place. It was just like, John, he was with the Houston Chronicle. He's like, John, whatever. Yeah, I think he would set up all their media. Hey, guys, I'm going to need y'all to do this at 2:00 today. Okay, John, sounds good.
We've had John on the show as a guest. He's one of my favorites.
Well, yeah. John and I've been friends for a long time. John tells me one time, I'm like, John, it was like somebody had died that we both knew really well. And I just thought this is kind of a one-off. I'm sure John will come on with me. And John tells me, he's like, well, Matt, I've got an exclusive with Smokey. I'm sorry I can't come on. That just was like, oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, Mose, let's move to Baylor while I have you. This turnaround, can you put it into context with the Baylor's program and its history?
Well, I don't recall. I think that 2012 Baylor team is a really good comparison, but because they had stepped back, it was post RG3, and they'd gotten off to a rough start that season, and they flipped it and got it going. But at least with that team, you knew they had enough talent, some great defensive players. Florence had already put up some big numbers, especially a game against West Virginia. But this was the most unexpected thing I've ever seen in all my years of covering Baylor and being around it. I think we still had too much of that 2023 stink on us to possibly, and again, you benefit from not having the 50 years I've had around this program, because you can kind of see it with fresh eyes at times. Whereas most of us are like, okay, what's going to go wrong? All right. Okay. We're great. We've gotten great. Bryles era, and the carpet gets ripped out from under us. Oh, Rule brought us back. He leaves for the NFL. It's like we always kind of have that feeling of we can't have nice things sort of deal. Mm-hmm. So we had all resigned ourselves that this is not going to work, and this season's over, and they're going to have a new regime. And though he would never admit it, you have to think Mac and even President Livingstone were sitting there thinking about what's next and how's this going to go and how are we going to deal with this.
I'm sure you may know this, and I don't. I'm sure there were conversations, right, that took place. Like, okay, where do we go next? What are we thinking?
Oh, I think it's kind of like when Scott almost left. I think Mac was ready to move within 24 hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, let's have a time of mourning. I think Baylor would have had a coach within like 48 hours of Scott leaving to Kentucky if he had done that. And so, yeah, Mac, same thing with these NFL owners, even Jerry has some names in his hip pocket. So, certainly Mac hadn't formally launched any search, but he had some names probably in mind. He didn't want to have to use them, and he ended up not having to use them. And I made this point on my radio show. Sometimes it's funny, the same things that we get disgusted with coaches on end up being their superpower in a weird sense. And this sort of not unemotional, kind of aloof nature that Dave Aranda has, he might be one of the only coaches. I guarantee you, your coach at Richmond was not like this. And any coach you've ever been around, he might have truly been the one guy who could lock out the outside noise and not sit there and think. He's just wired so differently. And so I think his unemotional sort of burying himself in football somehow kind of sustained him and sustained the team as they fell to 2-4, because it is so easy for a staff to start to mail it in when it's going the wrong direction. It's so easy for the players to mail it in. And yet, once they had that huge breakthrough against Texas Tech, it's like the dam broke.
Tell you what, Mosley, that sounds like a really good. That sounds like a really good column right there. Yeah, I think we need to get you back at it, bro.
I don't know. I may have to talk to Bryce to see if there's any room in the Waco trip. I don't know. I don't know if anybody will have me anymore. But it's kind of wild that his sort of quirky personality ended up, I think, being the perfect fit for this weird, crazy season. And now they have to watch it swing in the other direction because they can't go next season. Now everybody's going to be picking them and saying how great they're going to be.
I couldn't agree more. If they can keep if they can get the band back next year, right?
Yeah.
And I think they will. I think Sawyer Robertson will stay.
So, yeah.
I think Cameron will stay. I think Bryson Washington will stay. Sawyer out of loyalty and because he is kind of different than the rest of the guys, period. And then, Bryson Washington, loyalty too. I mean, here's a guy who's right down the road and an hour away from home. Josh Cameron too. I mean, I believe they all come back, and I agree with you. So, the expectations are going to be so lofty coming into next year, which will be fun, but not so fun for Dave Aranda, I bet.
Yeah, I think that's right. And since you love hoops so much, by the way, well, I'm going to send you this Mark Pope thing I saw if I can find it.
What is
and he
it?
kind of speaks to all this.
Okay.
He kind of speaks to like how normal human nature is after a huge win or a huge season to have a letdown, and then you try to guard against that and all that stuff. And Mark Pope in about a 3-minute answer. I mean, I'm like, man, I think Kentucky may have gotten this thing right. Like I'm sure Scott would have done a great job there, but I'm just telling you, his explanation for how they handle that kind of stuff made total sense to me. And I think so many coaches handle it the opposite of what he said. They dwell too much on trying to make something not happen that they don't go out and make it actually happen. So anyway, Mark Pope, it was a good little speech. And I don't know. I think Mark Pope has a future as like a motivational speaker if this thing doesn't work out at Kentucky. By the way, if he loses like 5 conference games, they'll welcome him into being a motivational speaker there.
Yeah, and he's funny, having done a bunch of BYU games, right? He's great like in the things you're talking about, but then you'll be like, all right, coach, like, how's everything going on the day-to-day? He won't give you much before a game. Yeah. All right, Mosley.
Well, you would know that's your second home, buddy.
So today, I'm going out there on Saturday. I got a Utah game. So today, do you have Nikki Cowan on the show?
Nikki stops by, have a great visit with her, and the theme at the end of that interview is help is on the way. I mean, how cool will that be? And it turns out that our friend Aaliyah, coming to us from, I believe, the Florida Gators, could show up and suit out as early as the 18th of December.
How about that little scoop right here? There you go, Matt.
Maybe I should put that out there.
I like it. All right, Matt Mosley, ESPN Central Texas this afternoon. Matt, I'm here for you whenever you need me. All right, brother?
Buddy, you're great. Appreciate you having me. Tell all the Rogue folks I said hello, all right?
You got it, Matt. Talk soon.
And tell GXG I'd like to have an occasional interview if you'll share with me. All right.
I'm working on it.
Bye.
Bye. Matt Mosley, that's our guy right there. And he brings up a pretty good point at the end of something I can't talk much about. All right, we'll come back. Final segment, final moments with our guy here. Cam Stewart is next.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me, and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman. Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned kind of the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
Well, it is the final segment 3. Cam Stewart. Actually, we're going to, of course, do it some more. Cam's going to stay in the Rogue family, but Cam is moving to Chicago. Cam, don't fake it, dude. Knock it off.
Had an eyelash.
So, Cam, you're moving to Chicago.
Yep.
This was always the plan.
Yeah, the last couple of months.
I mean,
it wasn't
dude,
a lifelong dream, but yes, it was planned out.
Cam, the moment I started doing this show, you said,
"Yep." As soon as I got here, I knew I was going to Chicago at some point. Yeah.
I mean, thoughts?
You know where I'm at right now, Pete, and I'm sure you get like this too. Is like I feel like I'm not in a rush to leave Waco because I've been here for 10 years. I really like it. And I like working here, like physically working here. But now we're at a point where I've moved so much stuff, I've thrown so much stuff away that I just want to go. You know what I mean? Like, I just want it to all be done because the last week has been like packing up my stuff, and it looks I need to empty this place out, and it looks more cluttered than ever before.
Yes,
because you're packing it up. So,
but I'll tell you,
in that sense, I'm like, I'm ready
to dive into you. You've been in a pretty good mental state for the past like week or so, I'd say.
You think so?
Oh yeah, you seem looser than ever. And again, and I know what this is like when you're working in sports and you're on the come up. You're witnessing an ascension. You are overwhelmed with work and opportunity and saying yes. I was talking to Madison Hawk today. She's going to work with the Spurs as a sideline reporter. She's still going to do some of the stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. She's still going to do some of the stuff with Inside the 12. She's still going to do some stuff with the Texas Rangers. But we were talking about, I was like, well, you should still help out. And she's like, well, I'm worried if I couldn't get there. And then we both started to talk about like working in sports, saying yes to everything, and how that becomes extremely stressful. How did you manage that this past year? And you can't say edibles.
Well, I mean, I was going to say not very well. I think from a mental state standpoint, because the biggest thing of the last couple of weeks is I've just had less on my plate in terms of working. Yeah. Obviously, moving brings in a whole nother thing. But I mean, two things. I've had a car for 3 weeks now, which is a big problem. And I'm not doing as much. I'm still working a lot, but I'm not doing as much, which is really, really helpful. Because I'm in a place where I'm afraid to say no to things. And when I'm like looking at this move, because I'll be doing the camp show remotely. I'll be doing Locked On Baylor remotely. And it's like to the point where I'm like, can I just have like 2 things? Now those are 2 things. I don't know how much I can survive off that in Chicago, but like, I just need to get to a spot where I'm doing like 2 pretty solid things and I'm getting by. And if I can do that, I can wait to get rich, Pete, I can wait. But this season was doing like 7 things, and that was just way too much. I know. And it is all my own fault, because I knew I was going to be stressed to shit. But yeah, I mean, part of it, Pete, is a mentality thing. I was thinking about this the other day. I have some people in my life, both related and not related. So genetics / just being around people all the time that are just very negative. And as you can tell by knowing me, I could get pretty negative.
But I think, it's important that like you found a way to express that, like in your show, in certain areas, it's like almost like comedically, like it's unfortunate that it's working for you so well.
Yeah, that's that kind of goes back to I work well under pressure, but I don't live well under pressure. Like all of it comes back to that. Because if you just like saw me losing my mind on the Cam show, if I saw someone doing that, I don't know how I would approach them in public. Now, I'm a very introverted person for the most part, but I think I'm a pretty polite, nice guy in public. You know what I mean? Like I am a little different off the air, but I think that's more just like, I mean, I don't have to be in front of any camera to be flipping out in front of a Patriots game. Like that, trust me, that happens plenty with no cameras.
It's extremely authentic.
Yeah.
You know?
So yeah, I've been, but back to it, like I was trying to flip the mindset a little bit. Like I'm just trying to be more positive about things. And I think it's working. I didn't even do yoga this morning.
Yeah.
And I'm still in a good mood.
No, you are. Yeah. Are you on
like
edibles
usually,
right now?
Huh?
Are you on edibles right now?
No, not yet.
Last day.
No, I won't do it tonight either. But
really?
I didn't do it last night.
Okay.
I get too much packing. Sunday night I did some and I did not get nearly enough done. So
all right. Let's go. Yeah. I do want to talk sports with you.
Sure.
All right?
We could do
We're not
that.
going to wax poetic about your
about my career, my tenure here.
No, there's plenty of time to do that.
I had someone ask me the high low of my time in Waco.
They're trying to.
I've literally been here 10 years.
At the Rogue Media Network, they're trying to like separate us from each other. So they're like, you
can't do it.
Because I thought we're putting together. I thought every day we put together like very good content, and I think that folks thought you and I were just like using each other out of convenience, which there's a little bit of truth to both.
Sure.
Yeah, but I really was like, wow, like I get such good content with Cam that once a week we're going to keep doing something. There's no question about it.
Because I think we realized pretty early on, or at least I did.
Yeah.
I think we both do good shows, but I'm like, man, we could do a great show together.
Yes.
But we're already doing shows. So this was our way to do that.
And there's a lot of ways. There's so much. And Corey is so awesome. Corey Dickman at Rogue to talk about this. Like and Corey is awesome because he's always thinking big picture about how he could do stuff differently and continue to grow. And well, that's what makes Rogue so great. But yeah, it's been amazing doing stuff with you. And I look forward to continuing to do it. And I always, whatever you ever need from me, you can go here.
Hell yeah.
Even if you take advantage of me, like I'm going to help you move some stuff in about a half hour. Or
literally, you are going to help me in a very literal sense.
Honestly, it's my pleasure. Let's talk about Baylor basketball. That's also my pleasure. You're the host of Locked On. Your numbers are really, really good. You told me what Drake told us with his numbers and the financial windfall that comes for that MF. So I can't wait to give him crap about that. I didn't know those fur coats were real. All right. I think they are.
You wonder why he's in a new place every weekend?
I know.
I would be too. Yeah.
And he's like America's guest. Like he was at Iowa State this past weekend. Right?
Utah.
He's at BYU.
BYU invites him all the time.
So anyways,
yeah.
Baylor basketball taking on UConn on Wednesday night. It's like back to business for this basketball team. What does this game mean for Baylor right now? Is it a litmus test? Is it something that is a potential cornerstone for building the rest of their season on? Or is it a non-con game with an opponent who's really good? By the way, that opponent is pissed off right now. So it's not the best time to play UConn.
Yeah. Well, the way I've been thinking about this is I don't know if it's make or break for their season, but it is make or break for their reputation this season. Right? Because they've lost 2 games. They were both against ranked teams, and both they got boat raced, man. Like they were laughed out of the building. One of them was really a true road game up in Spokane against Gonzaga. By the way, Gonzaga and Tennessee, I don't know how much you follow Evan Miyakawa and his metric system of it, but those are his number 1 and 2 teams in the country. So there's something to be said for that. But if Baylor can go in and steal one on the road against UConn, like we're not going to remember a few months from now that was 4 straight losses for UConn or how bad it was in Maui. We'll just remember that it was the home of the back-to-back national champions and you went in there and beat them. That could change everything for you and your confidence and your reputation heading into Big 12 basketball in 4 weeks here. Now, if you lose, again, it doesn't bury your season.
No.
And you still be in the rankings. Huh?
Does it hurt you recruiting wise?
I mean, I guess to some extent because you are battling UConn for top end recruits. So I guess to some extent it probably doesn't help, but the thing that will happen with that, though, if they lose to UConn, it becomes such an easy excuse, which I think Baylor's gotten a couple of this year. Oh, well, it was Gonzaga, and it was on the road. Oh, well, you lost to Tennessee, but you played the night before, even though they did too. And this would be, well, it was UConn in the home of and on their home court. And there's something to that, but what Baylor wants to be is an Elite Eight Final Four program. You win those games at some point. Arizona, great example. Preseason top 10. They have really scuffled. They're out of the rankings now.
Yeah.
But part of that is because they lost on their home court to Duke. Those are wins that Duke gets. Those are wins that Gonzaga gets and Kentucky gets, and the last few years Houston has gotten. And they're one of the premier programs in college basketball right now. We need some more of those from Baylor. We need them to knock off UConn and not just say, well, it's UConn at home,
Yeah.
So it's something that could really change the way we look at them going into the conference schedule. If they win this game, then you're like looking at the conference and you're saying, well, Iowa State lost one to Auburn, but they've bounced back. They're pretty good. Houston, I don't know what's up with them. And, you know what? If Baylor beat UConn, I think they could take this Kansas team. It changes a lot.
Yeah.
It changes a lot. And both inside, I think, and outside of that locker room if they win that game.
Where do you see, who do you see stepping up when the Big 12 starts? What player so far has shown you that they have what it takes to rise to the occasion when the conference when conference play starts?
Yeah.
Someone that this team can lean on.
Good question, because I think there's a couple different ways to go with it. I think the guy who they will lean on in big games and a guy who can, I think, take over in big games is going to be Jeremy Roach. I mean, he has shown a willingness to be a big-time second-half player, and I've said this time and time again, there's a reason why you bring in a point guard who started 90 games at Duke and played in the Final Four. That's the reason you bring that guy in. The other player I was thinking of was Jaden Nunn, just in terms of, you actually called some of his best games last year.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he's going to be the leading scorer on the team.
I can't believe his evolution. I truly can't. From when he came in as a defensive stopper from VCU, I just saw him as grit and everything was tough. And then you mentioned that Iowa State game last year where he took over down the stretch.
Yes.
And scored the biggest basket of the game for Baylor. And potentially you could say won them the game.
And stick with me here, because I don't think he's going to end up becoming this player. But what we've described in his evolution is something we have seen at Baylor fairly recently. There was a guy who came in the transfer portal, point guard. He was really just a defensive guy. You didn't even know if he could shoot, and he really didn't shoot his first year, and he was a starter the whole time. And then the next year, he becomes a great facilitator, awesome three-point shooter, on top of being the best defender in the country, and becomes a top 10 pick. His name is Davion Mitchell. I don't know if Nunn's going to get to that level, but the evolution is scary similar in terms of, you kind of saw by the end of last year, okay, this kid can shoot it a little bit. And he had some big scoring games, won Big 12 Player of the Week. But I'm seeing his shooting splits this year. I'm like, this kid is going to be a 40-some-odd% three-point shooter. Like he could be a guy who's getting up to 18, 20 a game.
Yeah.
That is possible. I think Jeremy Roach can do it too, and I think he's going to be a facilitator in big moments. But I love Jaden Nunn. I don't think Jaden Nunn was a bad second point guard by any means, but I like that he doesn't have to do that.
Me too.
I think that's going to be a better spot for him.
Yeah. All right, Cam. Chicago, will it be a better spot for you? I don't know. Either way, we've got a spot for you here at Rogue, and we've got a spot for you here in our hearts. Cam Stewart.
It's been real, Pete.
He'll be back tomorrow on the Cam Show, so don't get too carried away. All right, we'll be back too. The Pete Sousa Show tomorrow, 1 p.m. Shahan Jayaraja from CBS is going to join us to break down the college football playoff rankings. And then on Thursday, we talk to Kenny Dillingham, head coach at Arizona State, and Joey McGuire, head coach at Texas Tech. Scotty Swingler on the Wheels of Steel. doing it for us once again, and Slovacic's doing it for all of us over the holiday season. Hop off I-35. Go see Ray at Slovacic's. Tell him Pete sent you. You won't get a discount. We'll see you tomorrow.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down to afterwards, was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been, no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy to have you today.
Nah, thanks for having me. And we always family no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe
more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways?
The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general management of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the draft room?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.